Alright, so I've gotten a lot of questions about my weekly training program, which I'll get into in a second, but first, you should check out this video on training fundamentals, in case you haven't already. Also, here are Dr. Coggin's endurance training zones, which you should go test and establish for yourself. Getting your power zones is ideal, but if you don't have a power meter, heart rate zones are fine too. Alright, so let's jump right into it. You might remember this graphic from my last video. It is my 2018 bike racing season fitness plotted against my fatigue. The red areas show periods of high fatigue and the blue areas show periods of good form. I like to think of the racing season as falling into one of three categories: base, build, or race. My weekly training routine is different in each, so we'll talk about each season individually, and I'll show you some of my weekly Strava data from this last year. And so, to get started, identify your first A priority race and rewind at least 3 months, ideally about 4, and that's when your base period begins. The base period is the foundation on which the rest of your season is based, so that's why it's so heavy with endurance workouts. You want to maximize Zone 2 and Zone 3 this time of year, so you'll typically see a higher weekly volume in terms of hours during the base period because most of it's spent doing low-intensity workouts, which are much easier to recover from. The core of my endurance training program is centered around my work commute. It's about 8 hours per week. It lasts the entire year, and 1 or 2 days a week I'll either go the long way home or I'll throw in a lunchtime group ride. But you got to be careful with the group rides because this time of year, like I said, you want to really be focusing on the low-intensity stuff. So during the group ride, stay at or below Zone 4 and build that endurance motor. There's really no reason to be spending any energy doing anything higher than Zone 4, especially this far ahead of your first priority race. So just keep it chill. Trust me, you will thank yourself in June. So now I've got 10 hours or so under my belt before the weekend even begins. And long weekend base rides in the winter are some of my favorites. I get with a few teammates and we just see pretty much how long we can hold Zone 2, taking minimal breaks. So at the end of an ideal week in the base period, which for me, kind of December to February, I'll have 14 to 15 hours, almost all of it, Zone 2, Zone 3, definitely all of it below Zone 4. So about a month before your first A race, you'll want to start incorporating some intensity in your weekly routine. My 8 hours worth of commuting to work each week continues, but I like joining some midweek practice races and hard group rides because, you know, in addition to the intensity I get from that, I also get to sharpen some racing skills and pack riding before, you know, the real racing season starts. I also like to join some early season lower priority races to prep, but if that's not an option for you, then this is the perfect time of year for some harder intervals like Zone 4, Zone 5 stuff. I wouldn't go much higher than that. And also maybe throw in a sprint or two if that's your jam at the end of each workout. But don't forget to keep a solid base of Zone 2 and Zone 3. Remember guys, this is an endurance sport and you have to maintain that sub-threshold engine that you spent all base period building. So after the end of an ideal week during the build period, I'll have 12 to 14 solid hours. During this period, fitness and fatigue are really start climbing, and you really should be looking forward to that rest day. So a week or so before your first big race of the season, that's when I dial back the volume quite a bit and I really start focusing on intensity. This marks the beginning of the race period. My weekly commute hours don't stop, but I noodle around, basically like barely Zone 2. It's more along the lines of recovery spinning, but I like to tell myself that I'm maintaining endurance. Midweek practice races or tough Zone 5 to 7 intervals really help to sharpen your skills you'll be expecting on race day. The purpose of this period is to really dial back your fatigue without compromising too much in fitness, especially the high intensity stuff, because just like you make those adaptations really fast, you can also lose those high intensity adaptations. But remember, you can't just stay in the race period for like an extended part of your season, because your fitness will eventually plummet just like your fatigue will plummet. So Choose this period to coincide with a block of maybe 2 to 3 weeks of racing, no more than that, and then go back to your build phase in preparation for the next race period. So comment below if you have any questions and to let me know what kind of content you guys want. Subscribe or leave a like if you found this helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one.